Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you with the With You, For You MSME webinar series presented by Reliance General Insurance and powered by Financial Express Digital. On this special occasion of MSME Day, I extend my heartfelt wishes to all of you who embody the spirit of resilience and perseverance in running your business. I'm Sonal Khetarpal, editor for the SME sector at Financial Express Digital, and I'm also the moderator for this inaugural webinar. Today, we will delve into the crucial topic of bridging the gap between the economic value of loss and insured value of loss for MSMEs in India. It is a widely recognized fact that the insurance market for SMEs remain significantly underpenetrated, despite the fact that MSME entrepreneurs often invest their life savings and even put their own house as collateral for the sake of their business. With the rise of unforeseen black swan events like the recent pandemic, and the increasing occurrence of extreme climate events like the hurricanes and the droughts, it has become imperative to explore the underlying reasons why the low uptake of insurance among SME entrepreneurs in the country. Today, our esteemed speakers will delve into this critical issue and discuss how the ecosystem can collaboratively bridge this gap. Without much ado, let me quickly introduce our panel of experts in alphabetical order to take this discussion forward. I have with me Abhishek Bondia. He is the co-founder of the 12-year-old insurtech company SecureNow Insurance Brokers that serves 40,000 clients across the country. He has over 19 years of work experience across renowned companies like McKinsey & Company, where he had set up research and analytics practice focused on hospitals, health, insurance, and pharmaceutical clients. Next, we have with us Amit Goyal. He's the director and principal officer at the boutique insurance broker Ragnall Insurance Broking and Risk Management, where he serves clients across the mid-market spectrum. He has 22 years of work experience in insurance distribution, supporting clients in risk management across property and liability segments. Next, we have with us Rahul Kumar. He's the partner of corporate insurance and advisory and financial services firm Upvisory. Rahul has over 18 years of experience in the BFSI segment and specializes in general insurance and risk management practices. He has worked across geographies, segments, product lines, advising large and mid-sized corporates on risk mitigation and GI solutions. Now let's quickly dive into the discussion and start with the perennial question on why is the uptake of insurance amongst MSME entrepreneurs so low in the country? Abhishek, I would like to begin with you first.
Thank you for having me on the panel. I'm delighted to be here. If you look at SMEs, the biggest challenge for them is the awareness issue. And on top of it, you have an access issue, right? So most of the SMEs are not aware about the kind of products that are available to protect their business and what could be some of the tentative costs for it. And even if they want to buy, it is quite an uphill task for them to buy a very simple insurance. I can give you, some examples. 10 years ago, when we started the digital journey for some of the commercial insurance products, we got a query from Chandigarh. There was this exporter who wanted to buy a commercial general liability because their contract required one. Now, it's a very routine product. But when they walked into one of the PSU branches in Chandigarh, somebody shooed them off saying that, look, these exotic products are not available in India, right? Ye sab bahar ki cheez hai. Go to the US and think about it. India mein ye sab available nahi hai. Now, this is a very routine product. And that tells you how a simple commercial general liability also becomes inaccessible for an SME. So if you tell the SME that these products are available to protect your business, many of them are willing to pay for it. But how do they get the information and how do they buy? That is the biggest challenge.
Just to add to what Abhishek has said, apart from awareness and availability, there is also a mentality which is there ki nothing will happen to me or nothing will happen to my business. That is one of the biggest, as a society, we are like that, humko to kuch nahi hoga. So that is also a factor wherein at most of the time, these entrepreneurs do not buy insurance.
हाँ कि बुरा नहीं, इसकी बुरा क्यों सोचे,
बुरा क्यों सोचना, या हमको कुछ नहीं होता, या हम तो 10 साल से ऐसे ही चला रहे हैं.
तो बुरा
So that
होगा.
is a factor. And second thing is that at times, they might have some bad claim experience in personal line of business, and that leads to not taking insurance for their commercial establishments also. So these things I wanted to add to what Abhishek just said.
Amit, I would like to add, and Abhishek raised this one point about access, the issue of access and awareness. So I would like you to elaborate on it a bit more. Why is access a problem?
So generally, what happens with the most of the SMEs, as Abhishek rightly said, the lack of awareness is also leading to the lack of access. So today, so commercial line products generally, which the SMEs need, these are complex products. These are not very easy to sell products. So our distribution strength, which is available in India, mostly which is based, from the agency point of view. So I do not think that they are competent enough to probably take the right products to the right SME clients. Now that is leading to a lot of not only mis-selling but also creating a lack of trust amongst these SMEs to understand that whether they are being offered the right products. So I think the access is when people bring the right product to the right SME. If that is not happening, it is leading to lack of trust, in the reliability or the credibility of insurance companies as well as the distribution, forces. So as brokers, while we have been trying to bring that accessibility, not only accessibility but also the competence, the right competence which is required, to service or to bring the right product, to a client. But I think we are very we have far few between to actually lead to reach the number of SMEs that are actually present. So we have millions of SMEs, but there are only 500, 600 brokers in India, and maybe a few hundred agents who understand this line of business. So the lack of accessibility is very, very huge, and I think that will continue to remain until unless we are really able to create that kind of background in terms of education, in terms of awareness, in terms of industry as a whole. So that lack of accessibility is always going to be there till we are able to breach all these issues, with the clients.
So shall we then talk a bit about the distribution strategy a bit, because considering this is also a very segmented, disaggregated market, and
Correct.
probably the deal size of every is very small. So
Right.
are you also then looking at a different distribution strategy for this segment? And since I know all three of you are very passionate about this segment, Abhishek, do you want to take this up? Amit, I know you have something to say. I'll come to you after Abhishek.
Sure.
So, Sonal, I think the points that are made are very pertinent. So we have to really think about the problem differently. Traditionally, we have thought about distribution as putting more people on the feet to serve clients.
Okay.
Today, as a company, we have offices in 10 locations, but we serve clients in more than 150 locations in the country.
Okay.
And the only reason why we've been able to do that is because we have adopted the digital route to serve an SME. Now, if you think about an SME ticket size, you think about a small shopkeeper, a small wholesaler, their fire insurance cost may not be even 2,000 rupees.
Okay.
Right? Now, suddenly, if you want to put a human being to go and meet them at their office, and you have a typical sales funnel where you meet 10 people and one of them gets converted, the economics never works out, right? So the need of the hour is to invest significantly in digital do-it-yourself journeys, right? And you, compound that with very high simplicity of purchase, very high transparency of product understanding, and then multiply that with awareness, right? Once you do that, then that's the that's one way in which you can enable large-scale SME insurance. The traditional model is of an advisory model is very, very difficult to scale, specifically when you're looking at micro and small enterprises. The moment you go to slightly larger middle enterprises, the advisory model can still work. But where we are today, we have to get them covered, right? Even for the most basic level of risk. So I would think digital is the right way to think about the distribution strategy.
Great. So Rahul, I would actually take this point with you now. So but this is also the segment that is not online, or is it? I mean, what
It
is
is
your
online.
perspective?
Yeah, it is online. I'll give you an insurer perspective that how insurance company look at this. Traditionally, SME business is still clubbed with corporate business. So SME becomes a part of your corporate distribution network. Now, if the way Abhishek told ki, there is a shopkeeper who needs a 2,000 rupees fire policy, corporate distribution will never help you to reach that kind of granular outreach that you require in terms of distribution. So traditionally, as an insurer, you have to treat SME business with your retail business. Now you will see that insurer advertise a lot about their motor insurance, their health insurance. But have you ever seen an advertisement for a shopkeeper insurance? Probably very never. So this if it has to go to that granular level. So digital is yes, but then in terms of treatment of this segment has to be retail rather than being treated with a bundle with a corporate distribution.
A very pertinent point, Rahul. So now let me talk about the other side. In your experience, you talk to a lot of SME clients. So what are the and now we have seen, there has been COVID in the last couple of years, and it was actually the small businesses that suffered the most. So, have you seen any experiences, real life examples where where you actually saw firsthand the potential consequences of not having adequate insurance coverage?
See, Sonal, you have to understand one thing that, during COVID times, I understand that a lot of, SMEs were shut down or a lot of businesses could not sustain that lockdown or low demand. But that did not help in terms of increasing the awareness on fire line of business. Why? Because nobody got any claim because of shutdown or lockdown. Because fire claim is always linked to material loss of damage. Unless until there is a material loss, you do not get a fire claim. So in terms of awareness, increasing awareness to take asset insurances, COVID has not made much impact. But yes, on employee side, employee side or workman compensation side, there is an increase in awareness that we should have these insurances. But I am little, I'm little this thing that on asset insurance side, COVID has not helped much.
Okay. Amit, what is your take on this, especially now? Because pandemic is something that has also happened, but we're also seeing a lot of climate risk.
Right.
There's water risk. There are these whole freak weather incidents that are happening.
So for SME, Sonal, climate change, I believe, has been the biggest differentiator in the uptake of insurance. So if you look at few past incidents, like on the western coast of India, we had never seen cyclones on the western coast of India. It's only fairly recently, and in the last 3-4 years, where we've seen 3 major cyclones. Nisarg, Taukte, and very recently Biparjoy. So this is in the last about 100 years of history of the Arabian Sea and the coast along that. We had never seen losses. We'd seen losses, flood in Bangalore. We've seen floods in Kerala. Practically, heavy monsoons every year in Chennai, leading to large losses. Or the 2005 incident, of Mumbai floods. So these, incidents really create that kind of, threat, for SMEs. As far as pandemic, since you asked, and I wanted to raise a very, very strong point there that we have seen a lot of uptake on the business interruption side after the COVID pandemic, where the SMEs were only buyers of material damage policies, and there was absolutely negligible uptake on the business interruption side. But post pandemic, the SMEs, the small sector, the medium sector, they realized that these kind of incidents are possible, are happening, and will keep on happening, including the risk faced due to climate change. And post that, when the SMEs have really seen, the businesses getting interrupted and, the revenues going down completely. So there has been a definite uptake on, the business interruption side.
Okay. So do you
Before
see
pandemic,
Rahul, yes. please go on.
before pandemic, pandemic was an exclusion. So now insurers have included pandemic as a cover under asset insurance. Yes.
Okay. And Abhishek, like usually, it is usually seen that insurance is a cost. It's an expense, right? So do you see that mindset? Has that changed or not yet?
No, so, insurance is a cost and it should be seen as a cost.
Not an investment?
Of course not. And we as a firm are very particular. So there are these investment plans, which are offered by life insurers, and there are these protection plans. And as a company, we're focused 100% on protection plans. So protection plan is an expense. The way you have to think about within expenses, there's a capital expense and there's an operating expense.
Okay.
For an SME, the risk of not buying an insurance is that their capital expenditure, tomorrow can go berserk, right? Which can get them out of business, right? So think about buying 1 crore rupees of machinery, right? And not buying insurance for it, which may cost about 1,000 rupees, right? And later having to pay another 1 crore rupees, right? Because the machine was burned down by fire, right? So one has to think about insurance as an expense, but as an operating expense to, mitigate your cash flows. So if you allow, I want to make, 2-3 adjoiners to what was said earlier.
Yeah.
So when you think about the pandemic, one big appreciation that has come about is a better appreciation for health risk.
Okay.
Right. And we have a lot of SMEs now thinking about buying employee benefit insurances, right? Which was earlier not the case, right? And there are people actively looking for it. And the unfortunate part is the part which affected the most, because of the pandemic, was the loss of profits, loss of business because of the shutdown and the lockdown.
Right.
That is something that has not really taken up. And I believe that for both these segments, policy has to set in much more, proactively than what it is today. The policy making around insurance penetration has to be much more proactive and assertive to make it really, go from here.
Okay, interesting. So, so then tell me one thing. So like a lot of on the distribution side, a lot of firms like yours, all the intermediary firms. So do you also then have to go beyond offering just like insurance products to, value-added services as well? Is that also now a big trend, or is it something new or has been there?
We think about the insurance value chain in 3 parts. There's a risk identification, there is a risk prevention, and then there is a risk mitigation, right? Okay. And of course, once an event has happened, then you're talking about restoration. But the other 2 parts, the first 2 parts, the risk identification and the mitigation and the prevention, is where all the value-added services, come into being. Just to give you some examples, on the risk identification, as a firm, we have invested in what we called an automated diagnostic. So an SME can come, put in some of their indicators, about themselves, and they could quickly understand what are the different kind of risk exposures that they have, right? In terms of awareness, that is the biggest challenge. They don't know what they have in terms of exposure, right? So as a firm, we have to provide that kind of value add. And when it comes to risk prevention, right, there is, of course, depending upon the economics of different lines of business, we do a lot of investment. For example, on the health side, while insurance would cover for hospitalization expenses, we would have like a virtual polyclinic service that we give to all our group health insurance clients, where employees can come and have doctor consultation at the convenience of their home or office, right, without having to visit a doctor. So this is I believe, right, to the points that Rahul had mentioned about earlier, how insurance as a category needs to be much better appreciated. Unless as distribution firms, we invest in identification and prevention, the mitigation would become like a distant dream. So I think it's pretty much a core of what we do.
Great. Amit, do you want to add to this, considering I read that you also work a lot on value-added products?
Sure. So, our the thought behind, working on, value-added services is, comes from our first-hand experience of working with SME clients. So what we see that, only an insurance approach, does not work with SMEs. So you really have to take a cover plus approach. So you can only not be looking at, the insurance cover. So basically, what we intend to be, are a complete ecosystem provider for the client as far as his risk management is concerned. And, insurance could be one part of it. So when we're looking at, say a fire insurance or a property risk for a client, we would rather want to be, looking at the entire risk on a wholesome basis. Now, whether it is, fire safety hazards, or whether it is, the compliance relating to that, or then whether, assessing the risk of fire happening, in the premises. So, so that's the wholesome approach that, we intend to take, going forward with the clients.
Great.
Just to add what Amit is saying, see, still insurance, when you approach a client or when you approach an SME, you should be able to give him a 360-degree solution to all that risk that he foresees, or you as an advisor foresee for that client. Now, what is happening from an insurer side, there are different lines of business, and there is a fire line of business, there is liability line, there is a health line, there is personal line. Now, as a customer, I will want to buy a bundled product. That bundling of product is still not happening to the extent that it should be, and a SME or a small client can buy a one-stop solution from a one insurance company. So that because of different lines of businesses, that bundling is still not happening the way it should be.
And also,
so, and if that bundling is there, it will become very easy for people like Abhishek, who has large distribution reach, to sell these things very quickly.
Okay. And also, one thing that I would also want to talk about, because the nature of risk is changing so fast, has the insurance products been able to, keep pace with offering, like, for example, now cyber has become very big, climate is becoming very big. So do we also have enough products for the segment, and where, like, for example, you said, Rahul, that you have to offer them like the entire portfolio of products together rather than just cover one threat. So is that also something that, is there in the market, or is it a gap?
There is a gap. There is a gap there. Just I'll give you one small example. Let's take a fire policy. Now, fire covers some 13, 14 perils. You are an entrepreneur sitting in, let's suppose, a coastal location of Visakhapatnam. You might see cyclone as a threat, but if you will think that fire though is not a threat for me, or an earthquake is not a threat for me. So what is happening is there are a lot of redundancy in product, which is a little hindrance in selling these products. Yes.
Okay.
So somebody sitting in Meghalaya will definitely buy an earthquake policy rather than buying a comprehensive policy of fire. So and if we are able to unbundle, there are some initiatives which have been, IRDA is now talking about. They have come up with Bharat Laghu, Bharat Sukshma products. But then the kind of innovation that has to be there, or the kind of freedom that an insurer should have in terms of just tailor-making the risk to a particular client is not happening.
Okay, got it. Amit, do you want to speak about the new innovative products that should be there and are not there, or are already there?
So yes, I carrying on from what Rahul said, what we are expecting, are basically small, products which are very, very relevant to the industries that they are targeted at. So we have very, very standardized products, as Rahul mentioned about the Bharat Laghu and, Bharat Sukshma product. Now, what the attempt was to probably, standardize products for the industry, for the SME. But I think what has happened is that they're really, bundled in a very different way and not really serving the purpose. So one is that the products have to be fairly, non-comprehensive is what I would say. And the products would have to be structured, keeping in mind the need of the industry rather than, selling out, standardized product across industries. So until that, freedom is there, for the industry to develop those kind of products. So today I sell a same fire policy or a same Laghu or a Sukshma policy to a pharma company. I sell a same policy, to a textile company, to a steel company. So it's the same product that is being sold across the board. What I feel is that particular freedom has to be in the hand of either the distributor or the client who is actually investing money there. Second, I feel is that what can happen is that there can be some kind of embedded products which can be sold. So that freedom of selling embedded products also has to be there, to the clients.
Or can you share some examples around this, Amit? Or I'll just come to you, Abhishek.
So I think cyber is, one very, very good example of that. So we are working with several cyber security companies, who basically work on protecting the cyber risk for the client. And now what we have been able to do is bundle, a small ticket, a cyber insurance, when they're selling a cyber security to clients. Now these kind of, value adds can really happen across board and across, different products.
Okay. Abhishek, you wanted to make a point?
Yes. So, Sonal, when you think about insurance products, and one of the challenges in insurance adoption, which was said earlier on, is about the kind of claim experience that you can expect. And you can address that at the product stage itself, right? So within insurance, there are these two different categories of products. There are the indemnity products, which is the most prevalent, and there are these fixed benefit products. As an industry, what we ought to do much better, and I think the journey has started, is invest a lot more in the fixed benefit product. The moment you do that, you are assigning a much higher predictability of the user experience at the time of claim, right? So the SME does not have to run pillar to post for documentation. In the case of a trigger of an event, they get a lump sum amount. And we have seen a very high uptake of that already. So for example, within health insurance, you have your traditional health insurance, and then you have something called the hospital cash, which is a fixed benefit product, wherein for every day of hospitalization, you get a lump sum amount. The number of users who have started opting for that product is phenomenal, right? People who would otherwise not want to buy health insurance feel this is a much simpler product for them to understand. And there could be, there are already examples of, this concept across different lines. They just need to be, marketed better.
Got it. And so, all three of you actually touched upon the regulation part a bit in your answers. So can you then, tell me a bit more about, and I would want to hear from all three of you on this, on how regulation can actually play a critical role to facilitate this, in increasing the insurance penetration for the SME sector. Rahul, do you want to take this up first?
Regulations play a very, very important role here, because there have been recent attempts of what Amit just mentioned about Bharat Laghu or Bharat Sukshma. What they try to do is they have tried to fix the lower limit. Now, lower limit means bare minimum a customer will get this much if he opts for a Bharat Laghu or a Bharat Sukshma. Now, what is the way forward from this? So you are fixing a lower limit. What you are addressing here is that, a lot of mis-selling used to be there. So now a SME is, if he's buying a Bharat Laghu, he's assured that bare minimum he'll get this. Now, to expand this or to expand the reach, you need to give freedom to insurer in terms of designing the product. I am okay with setting minimum standards, but after that, what? So there, I would like the regulators to pitch in terms of that. Okay, in term you under the guidelines of policy takers, this thing that it should not be missed. But now, once you have set the lower limit, let's look at how to make it reach to wherein insurer can take calls on product. So we will require regulations to pitch it.
Amit, your take, please.
Yeah. So other than the product side, I think where regulations would really have to start playing an important role, especially for the SMEs, is I mentioned during my earlier conversation also, is building trust. So non-uptake of insurance amongst SMEs, there is a lot of mistrust, with the SMEs on the credibility of the insurers or whether the insurance policy would trigger at the time of a claim. And we've really seen, I mean, this is a fact of the industry that the SMEs, are a harried lot when losses have to be compensated. So while products have been, to some extent in the last 2 years relaxed, and we're looking at more relaxation, from the regulatory side, we're not seeing, a lot of action happening from the regulatory side, on how losses are going to be compensated, how fast they have to be compensated. So I think, some regulation, while we do have a Policyholder Protection Act and we do have some regulations around that, but how far is it getting implemented? So I think if there could be some, kind of a regulation where the SMEs can be, be sure of being compensated when there is a loss, I think that would build a lot of trust. So I think, my first expectation from the regulatory, provisions now would be, to work on that.
Got it. Thanks, Amit. Abhishek, what is your perspective on the regulatory framework?
Yeah. So, from what has already been said, I must say that the current regulator is highly progressive. And we have seen some initiatives coming out, like the standardization of products, as a welcome move for SME, which takes away some ambiguities and makes the product sell pretty easy. If I think about my wish list, I would say the 3 major gaps which should be addressed. One, today, we don't have a very efficient grievance mechanism for SME.
Okay.
Right. So today you have an ombudsman for personal line of insurance, but for commercial insurance, you cannot go to the ombudsman. Right now, now they have to go to the, either the consumer court or the civil court, right, which becomes pretty onerous for an SME. So if you really want to have that trust with the SME, you have to give them a place where they can take up their grievances. And we have to make the grievance cell, right, of insurance companies much more accountable than what they are today. I think if the circle is really made strong in the end, right, then it becomes like a whole. So the grievance mechanism really needs to be invested in from a regulatory perspective. But if I take it more broadly, I think there are bigger interventions required at a policy making level, right? So if you we spoke about loss of profit as a big area for SME. Now, you think about like a tour operator in Chennai, right? A travel agent in Chennai. They don't have assets, right? But if there's a flood, their entire business gets evaporated, right? Now, the way to cover that is through parametric insurance, right? Or if you think about a manufacturing firm, like something like an earthquake and flood in coastal areas become extremely critical for them. What we need to do from a policy perspective is, make some insurances even mandatory, right? Depending upon the location, which makes these SMEs less vulnerable, creates a more level playing field, and brings that pool of risk to make this risk price more efficiently, right? Today, if you see the biggest source of gap between the economic loss and the insured loss, a large reason for that is uninsured. And the other large reason is we don't even have the right products in the market because of the lack of policies around it, right? So I think that is a very strong impetus required. And third, at a more tactical level, we have to think about enabling insurance even through taxation, right? So not necessarily giving tax breaks, but thinking about insurance expense pretty much in line with any other business expense. So, for example, if an SME were to buy a group health insurance policy, they won't get input tax credit on GST.
Okay.
Right now, that's suddenly an additional 18% expense for them, right? Which becomes cost prohibitive. So, bringing some of these things to a level playing field can really enable adoption much more.
Very, very interesting points, Abhishek. Let's now talk about some of the, in the current scenario, if you could share some best practices or success stories that showcase actually effective insurance coverage for SMEs, or where cases where SMEs have been able to, overcome some threats or issues with adequate coverage. Rahul, any examples from you?
I had one client which had taken an office package. This was a software company, office package they have taken, and there was a fire accident in their kitchen. And what happened is that entire their floor, because of smoke, they had very beautiful painted walls and all. Because of the smoke, that office was like, disfigured. Their carpets were, because of operation of this firefighting equipment, their carpets were damaged. Now, this client, since he was, this was an office which was, and this client was US based. This was having their India operations, and they had adequately taken their business interruption, their fire insurances, and within 30 days, we were able to settle all their claims to their satisfaction. So, if you are taking a coverage, if you're taking a adequately covered, insurance companies pay the claims. If you are right about your documentation, if you are right about your sum insured, claims do come.
Great. Amit, any example from you of such a success story?
So, we had a very, very interesting, case with one of our clients. It was a small SME, manufacturing and exporting, pharmaceutical machinery and exporting it across the world. So when we sat down with them, for assessing their, the marine transit risk, we saw that most of their transits were happening on a FOB basis. That means the exports not to be insured by them, but by the buyer. But when we also saw that most of the exports that they're doing were on credit. So the money was coming after 60 days, 90 days. So what we explained to the customer at that point of time was that they are still carrying the transit risk. So if something happens during transit, the buyer wouldn't pay, and if you do not have an insurance, finally the cost of the damages would fall back upon you. And based on that, we issued a marine policy with a seller's interest clause to the client. And ultimately, one of the transits to Turkey during the COVID period, was completely damaged, was received completely damaged at Turkey. And as we had predicted, the buyer had no insurance. The buyer had not procured any kind of insurance to protect the consignment. And since we had covered the consignment on a seller's interest basis, the client could compensate from the Indian insurance company. The entire claim was paid. And I think these are the examples where the risk assessment and understanding the client's business really helps. So these are small clients with different kind of risks and different kind of business styles. So once the risk assessment is done, on a proper understanding, I think the right insurance covers can be given. So this is one example, which has been very.
Yeah, so I think there are enough claim examples being spoken about, and we handle about 60 claims every day. So, SMEs do get their claims, what is due. I'll give you a different example in terms of how we've been able to successfully increase insurance penetration for SME. This example of a doctor community. Now think about doctor as a micro enterprise, right? An individual practitioner running his small firm. One of the biggest threats for them is claims from patients, legal claims for deficiency of service. So they have to buy what is called a professional indemnity insurance. Now it's a fairly complicated product, and doctors, as you know, they hardly have the time and the bandwidth to go through the different clauses.
True.
So what we did here was, did a tie-up with one of their medical association. This was Delhi Medical Association, who worked with us to design a product which would befit their member base. We negotiated the right features and the price for the client. They had a member base of about 8 to 10,000 doctors, and we were able to design such an efficient plan which brought the cost of the insurance for them by 90%. Right. And now, if you think about a doctor, when the product comes to them, it is something which is specially negotiated for the doctor, vetted by their association, and available digitally. Right. So all they have to do is click a few buttons, make the payment, and get the policy without having to do a necessary diligence, because you have the trust based upon the association's word. So, in our mind, that is the right way, where you make groups of SMEs really do the right segmentation and really take up the penetration further.
Got it. Thanks, Abhishek. So I can see I've got a heads up that I need to wrap up the discussion, but very quickly, there are two questions that I will ask, and I would, but that is something that is critical that we cover in this panel. So, if I have to ask all of you, what are the critical practical steps that SMEs can take to assess their insurance needs? So probably what are the questions they have to ask themselves before they opt for the appropriate insurance? What would those questions be? So probably you can give me two questions each. Amit, what are the questions that they should ask themselves?
I think for me, the first question that every SME has to ask themselves is, what is the kind of advice that they're getting? And what is the kind of distributor or a broker that they're engaging with? Because that's a big issue with SME, that they link an SME product with the retail. They misunderstand it like a retail product, and they fall back upon a bank or a retail agent to probably give them that cover. So I think the first question that every SME should be asking is whether they're engaging the right broker or the right advisor to guide them through this. I think the second most important thing that SME has to question themselves is, what kind of insurance and what kind of investment or, an expense, as Abhishek earlier mentioned, what kind of an expense that, they're budgeting for insurance. Now, that expense has to be in consonance with, the kind of risk that they're carrying. So if it's a plastic industry, they would have to probably, look at a higher expense. So I think they're the two most important questions: the right advisor and the right kind of expense that they're budgeting.
Okay. So Rahul, what should those questions be according to you?
First, they should be looking at whatever asset or liability or employee benefit risk that they are trying to cover. They should ask very, very detailed questions about what kind of sum insured that they're taking. Fixation of sum insured is something which is not done properly, and they should ask that why and what amount of coverage that they want. That is the first thing. Second thing is that they should be looking at that every insurance might not be relevant to them. So relevancy of the product that they are buying it should be looked at very, very critically by these people.
Great. A fair point. Abhishek, what should be the questions?
Very crisply. What are my risks and how much am I willing to spend per year?
Okay, fair point. Okay, so my last question is, from the ecosystem side, what are the efforts do you think is required to increase the uptake of insurance? And I would want you to club this with your last thoughts so we can close this panel then. Rahul, over to you.
As Abhishek mentioned, that since these products or these premiums are clubbed with corporate business, and the bargaining power of an SME with an insurance company is very, very low. So if that can be bundled with the way Delhi Medical Association has taken the policy for their doctors, it will help to increase the penetration. So all these industry associations should try and work with insurance company, should try and get a comprehensive bargaining done with an insurance company, and then they shell out these products to their members. That will help in increasing the penetration a lot. So that is one point. Second point is that SME has to be declubbed with corporate business, because the moment you club with the corporate business, all these things like bad claim experience or the processes that they have to go through at the time of claim settlements is cumbersome. So these things should be looked at, in my view.
Great. Amit, what would be your take?
I would look at an ecosystem approach, for this. So it could be negotiated ecosystems like health checkups, finance, or preventive services, or it could be as we mentioned a simple product like a embedded loan cover, a weather cover along with loans, so that if there is a cyclone, the loans are waived off. So no, I would look at an ecosystem approach, or probably an embedded approach, towards increasing insurance penetration.
Abhishek, your last thoughts?
Yes, I think the biggest thing that the industry could do is have a much more customer orientation. Today, I think we can be faulted by saying that we are highly supply oriented. I think, instead of thinking about SME as an afterthought, really bring SME at the center of whether it is a product, distribution, price, access strategy. We bring SME at the center and then design solutions around it, whether it's the org, whether it's the digital journeys. I think the more we do that, I think the faster we'll get there. So we have to have a much higher client orientation than what we have today.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Abhishek. So with this, we come to the end of this webinar. I would like to thank all of you and our audience for watching this very interesting discussion. We have covered a lot of ground, and I learned a lot, and I hope this panel meets its original objective in creating awareness around insurance amongst the MSME community. Thank you again and have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana.
Thank you.